right. With that, we have 2 more sessions to go. I hope you guys are all still energized to see 2 more real amazing talks. And of course, we still have our winner, the Avalanche, which I'm sure you'll be excited to see as well. For our second to last conversation, I want to introduce our host for this conversation. Our host is going to be Alex Bangash, and Alex is the founder of Trusted Insight and managing director of TI Platform Fund, an anchor fund for the most disruptive venture funds of this decade. He has helped to invest more than $2 billion in 50 funds, and early in his career before joining the venture world, he has been an engineer and an executive at Bell Labs, and he is going to host a conversation with Jack Abraham about parallel entrepreneurship and how to build multiple successful companies at the same time. Please welcome Alex and Jack to Techsylvania.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We are delighted to be here at Techsylvania. Big fans of things of entrepreneurship. I know UiPath put Romania on the map, and now amazing companies, amazing engineers. We always knew that, but so really excited. Sorry we couldn't do it in person, but I'm glad we're doing the virtual thing, and I couldn't be more excited to host Jack Abraham. So I know when we first met Jack, everybody was like, how can one person build companies? How can there be a VC building companies? And now with the exit of Snowflake, just that people don't realize, Snowflake, Mike Spicer made twice the amount of money that Excel made out of Facebook. So that's how significant it is. And they incubated it. So Jack is incubating companies like, like Mike Spicer did. And by the way, Mike Spicer, and this is all these lists, while they're backward looking and they're completely wrong, he was never on any list by any thing. So I think we're lucky to be involved with Jack and to be interviewing him today, because I think he has a lot of very, very disruptive companies, which are almost all on day one. So Jack, before you tell us, why don't you start with your story? I mean, what motivated you to start Atomic and kind of turn the venture world and even the entrepreneurial world upside down,
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for having me. Great to see you, Alex, as always, and excited to share more about Atomic and my story and our story. My story is I come from a somewhat interesting family. My father actually came to the United States without a dollar to his name to get a PhD at MIT, slept on a concrete basement floor in a sleeping bag because he couldn't afford student housing. And after that, he joined a company and eventually was promoted to be CEO of that. So I saw that kind of growing up. I saw him leave that company, start a company and sell it. And then when I was about 12 or 13, he invited me to join a new company that he was starting as a software engineer. And I joined that, got to see the company scale up to thousands of people eventually and go public for billions of dollars, and just fell in love with the process of entrepreneurship and, got the bug early and knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I started starting companies at age 15. And I wanted to kind of balance out the self-taught programmer in me with a business background. So I went to Wharton undergrad to try to, get a great education on the business side as well. Loved the program, super competitive, was in the Joseph Wharton Scholar program. And actually in that program, I had an independent study with one of the top professors from the university, at the end of which he offered me $500,000 to start a company if I wanted to. So I took him up on that, started my first company straight out of college, moved out to the West Coast to get it going. And to make a long story short, we built it through the Great Recession, and coming out the backside of that, we had the option to raise a big Series B or be acquired by eBay. I was 24 at the time and thought I wanted to be starting companies for the rest of my life. So I decided to proceed with the acquisition. I was put in charge of the local division as one of the youngest execs in the company's history, worked very closely with John Donahoe, who was the CEO at the time, who ran Bain and, since ran ServiceNow, he runs Nike now. And I'm a big fan of, not wasting time. And I'm also a huge fan of Amazon's and Jeff Bezos's. And Amazon's one of those companies that has consistently been able to churn out hits, one after the other. So I really studied what are the core tenets of innovation at Amazon. And one of the things that Jeff Bezos really has as a core tenet of innovation is a concept around a term that he coined called 2 pizza teams, which is essentially, a handpicked group of people between 3 to 8 engineers, product people that he hand selects to build new products for the company. And they're kind of quarantined off the mothership. They build the initial product. Once it's working, then they can actually go and scale it up. And it's worked incredibly successfully for Amazon. So I thought I'd try my hand at that at eBay. I built about 6 of these teams in parallel, loved the process of parallelizing product development, fell in love with it. Most of the things that we built were hitting and driving press cycles and the stock price. The biggest thing that I did actually transformed the core experience on the site and made it so you could follow things on eBay like buyers and sellers and save searches. And we shipped that to 130 million people in 9 months. So that was a great process. And at the same time, I got involved in investing. I was an early angel in Pinterest when it was 4 people and used to advise Ben Silberman. I was an angel in Flatiron Health, which is, I think, one of the largest M&A exits in New York's history. It was at one point the largest. I'm not sure if it still is, but I think it might be.
One of the most outspoken founders,
Yeah, absolutely. I was an investor in Uber. I actually invented Postmates, gave the idea for the company to the founders. They were working on a B2B furniture delivery company when I met them. And that helped spawn the whole food delivery space, which has helped save the world during this pandemic, and still own a material amount of stock in that company. Doctor on Demand, I was an early angel in, which taught me about telemedicine that led to some of the insight behind HIMSS. Philo, which is an amazing company, which is like Spotify for TV. I wrote the first $150K check to help start that company. And that company is on a path to go public and rivals, YouTube TV now and a lot of other services. So fell in love with angel investing. But at the same time, at this point, I was 26, had a lot of ideas. I wrote them all down in an Evernote file. I had about 250 ideas for my next company. And I put 2 and 2 together, which was to say, if I can build 2 pizza teams for eBay to build products for eBay, why can't you do that for startups? It makes sense that would work even better. You can pick exactly who you want on the team. You can use open source in AWS. You can work on any product in the world. Everyone gets a ton of upside in the outcome. It seemed like from first principles that was a much better idea. So I started Atomic with the mission to find a better way to build companies, take these 250 ideas, find the top 10, build a 2 pizza team, build the product, invest to start the company, and then continue to operate the company, invest alongside the company as it scales. And I started that with my own capital in 2013. We raised our first fund in 2013. Peter the fund and Mark Reeson and a lot of other founders of venture firms like Iden Kit and a lot of other founders of companies, and that's gone on to do really well. It's been around a 60% IRR fund, which is really, really high up there in terms of performance for venture funds. And then our second fund we raised in 2017, which has also been doing really well, which has been a mid-40s IRR fund, and it's doing extraordinarily well. And at this point, we've founded a couple dozen companies with many more on the way. We're starting more companies now than we ever have at any point in our history. And we're definitely looking at Atomic as a long-term vehicle and a system for a better way to build companies. And we're extremely excited and feel privileged to partner with people like Alex in that process.
Great. And when I look at kind of the things that you're doing, and so I'm a big student of course, entrepreneurship and venture. And, you had these chairman investors, right? You had Ram Shriram being the chairman of Google, or Mike Markula being the chairman of Apple, and writing the first check and being the chairman. And I think you did that, but you said, let me build these, so you've done both. You've like you in Postmates and some of these others, you've been the chairman, the idea, but I think seems that's where your passion is. As you've developed things, what are some of the unexpected benefits or network effects that you're seeing, right? I know you have this vision, but I'm sure you've had we'll talk about the challenges later, but what have been some of the unexpected things that you've seen? And I'll tell you what was unexpected for me, but maybe I'd love to hear your kind of unexpected upside of building multiple companies at the same time.
Yeah, it's a great question. The best businesses that you can build are businesses that ultimately get easier to operate over time. And that's certainly something that we've experienced at Atomic. There certainly are network effects in doing what we're doing. The three ingredients to making companies are talent, ideas, and then capital. Those are really the three things that feed our engine. On the talent side, as we have more companies that grow, that are more successful, that are out there more, and our brand grows, more people come to us. People are coming to us wanting to start companies with us more than ever before. It's just a lot easier to recruit incredible people to run our companies. And also because we have so many people across all of our companies, the amount of referrals coming in through our own companies gets higher and higher over time. When it comes to ideas, there are two things that happen that are really interesting. The first is by operating more companies, you get more information. So you see more patterns of things that are working. A big, really important thing when it comes to entrepreneurship that you learn is actually that distribution is more important than ideas. And one of the things that you learn as you operate more companies is paths of distribution that work, that are validated. And as we develop expertise around different distribution channels, we can then plug them into new companies and also understand which ideas can be developed that work in those distribution channels. We also believe that we are in an age of technology transforming every core industry and facet of life. And when you're innovating in another industry as an outsider, you might have a perspective, but it could be fairly naive until you really operate a business in that industry. And then once you operate a business in that industry, you understand that industry. You know why it works the way it does, what's working, what's broken, what the incentives are, how to make ideas spread in that industry, and ultimately what are the best opportunities to pursue, which adds to the number of ideas that you have. And then increasingly, people in our network and also, great venture capitalists are constantly coming to us with ideas that they have that they would like to build with us and invest in, which is a big advantage. And then finally, from a capital perspective, as our companies are more successful and the returns increase both per company, but also at a fund level, and we develop deeper and deeper relationships with our co-investors, they tend to come back and invest again and again and again in our companies. And the reason for that is they know us, they trust us, they know the quality of our work. And because we're a known quantity that they've worked with before, we have this unfair access to capital where we can typically raise capital very quickly. There have been times where we've been able to raise capital in a week or get a term sheet in days. We get a lot of investments that are inbound and term sheets that are inbound where we don't ever do a process. Most of our companies, we're not actually going around and doing a roadshow on Sand Hill Road where someone is preempting the round. So all of those advantages end up reinforcing each other and becoming stronger and stronger and stronger over time. And that's what we're experiencing.
Yeah, it seems like you're getting pro-verse selection, whereas conventional wisdom would say you would get adverse selection. In fact, the opposite is happening. You're getting better people come to you because the 0 to 1 is so hard, and you've basically systematized. And Atomic is such a great name because you have the atomic steps to do the 0 to 1. And then also I think the curation of high quality companies, because especially you're seeing in COVID, people don't know where to go. They come to Atomic and they can see great companies with great management teams and market fit. So yeah, congrats on. It takes a long time to get the network effect going, but it seems you've gotten the network effect going. So that's fantastic. What about some of the challenges, and how has, and I'd love to understand, because I think, with COVID and with remote work, how has that changed or evolved the team building dynamic, that those two pizza teams now have to work remotely, and of course there's much more pressure and stress, and sometimes those teams are just now forming. So how has that lived up to your expectations, or how is that different? What nuggets have you learned from building two pizza teams in the COVID environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would add, first of all, to the comment you made before the question in terms of positive selection versus adverse selection. Certainly all sorts of talent is coming our direction that is increasing in quality. But the other thing that we're finding is, as our companies are scaling, the ability to get unbelievable people as co-founders and as CEOs of our companies, as they are kind of reaching the point of scale or that 1 to N phase of hyperscale, is improving dramatically. A lot of the people that we're bringing in that are co-founders and CEOs, some venture capitalists will meet with them and say they're the most talented founder or CEO that they've met with in a couple of years. And these are pretty top tier venture capitalists. So that's another kind of secret unlock of our model, is the ability to bring in really, really high powered people as the company is scaling up. In terms of COVID and its impacts, at first we were a little bit worried about it. When you think about early stage companies, a lot of it can be brainstorming, it can be, whiteboarding, it can be conversations in the hallway that become really important. What we've actually found, interestingly, is the opposite, which is that it's been dramatically easier to form companies, and that we've been building companies and developing products faster than we ever have in the past. I think there are a few reasons for that. One is, my partners and I, we've all started billion-dollar companies in the past, and, we know what it takes to build companies, and we're working with our co-founders to move to the right milestones. And I think there is something to be said for the level of critical thinking that can be done when you're not being bombarded in an office versus when you have time to really think and play offense, and really choose how to spend your time during the day. And I think we're both making higher quality decisions, and we're choosing how to allocate our time more intelligently at the partner level than we ever have before, which I think is a big difference. I think the second thing that's really interesting is it's totally opened up our aperture in terms of people that can work with us. Once you're remote, you don't just have to recruit people that work in the small, tiny area of San Francisco. We can recruit, and we have, amazing people from New York, other parts of the country, potentially other parts of the world in the future. And that is a dramatic lift of a constraint on us that we found is absolutely phenomenal. I think that other people are probably experiencing the same thing. Just the ability to focus in this environment and really just get things done is probably unparalleled to the typical environment that you might find. So it's been an accelerant in terms of talent acquisition. Certainly COVID has created a whole new landscape of ideas. There's a lot more problems that COVID has created, unfortunately, in the world, which necessitates solutions. And then the ability to focus, both for us, our co-founders, and everyone on our team, I think is, a really, really handy weapon that we have.
I know all of your companies have a remote component to it, but I don't think yet you've started a company that is not based in Silicon Valley. Or maybe you have, but with this, would this be the tipping point? Will you consider starting companies in other geographies now that we are all remote? Does that break that barrier for you? And what do you think about that?
I think it does break the barrier. I think it's really interesting to witness that a lot of talent is kind of leaving some of these tier 1 city areas, whether it's the Bay Area or New York or Seattle, a little bit for that component from that perspective. The most important thing that we have found is we have 10 offices across North America. So we have access to great engineers that are everywhere, salespeople, all sorts of talent that can help scale up people at the individual contributor level. But the most important thing in terms of operating companies and scaling them is management level talent. And historically, management level talent has clustered in San Francisco, New York, or Seattle. And you can find management talent in other cities. It's just a little bit harder to find. But as that management talent is spreading out, I think that there are interesting opportunities to start companies elsewhere. And as companies have really learned to become remote, having management teams that are a little bit more distributed can work too. For some of our most successful companies, there have been people on the team at the C-suite that have actually not been in the HQ office. In fact, in a couple of the companies, there have been 2 of the people in the C-suite that have been very, very effective that did not, actively participate day-to-day in person at the core office. So I think as everyone has gotten a lot more used to distributed work, I think that you can build these teams anywhere. The key is really, the most important thing is still optimizing for the management talent and the degree to which, you can still find them wherever they are and make sure that you can get them on board. That's really the key determining factor. And I think that COVID has kind of lifted that constraint for them where they are moving to different areas and they're absolutely open to remote. So I think that long answer to your question, but the answer is yes. I think that we are going to experiment with that.
So Jack Dorsey runs 2 public companies, and Elon, God knows how many, but maybe one is public. But now you very soon, I'm sure you can't speak about it, but you soon will have at least one company go public in the short term. How do you? Maybe this is a good segue. How do you split your time between helping companies which have already taken off the inflection point, and newer ideas? And would love to learn more about some of the companies that have taken off and are taking off even more in COVID. So,
yeah, great question. So the hardest part about creating companies in terms of really getting them to a point where they're on a rocket ship trajectory is the 0 to 1 phase. It's the phase of finding a power law idea, executing on it and finding product market fit and getting it to the point where it is truly ready to scale and the unit economics work and you're ready to scale it up. That is extremely difficult. And there are very few people in the world that have done that many, many times over that have a lot of expertise in it. So one of the things that we've endeavored to do is to be best in the world at that 0 to 1 phase of company building, where we're the most active and spend the most of our time. And our perspective is that, and part of the secret to our model is once things are really working, we've done our job right if we've architected the company so well that we have such amazing people in the company that they don't need us anymore. And that's the secret. The best people in the world want autonomy. They don't want people breathing down their necks. They don't want, you telling them exactly what to do. So we really do act as co-founders, and at the board level, we work with them on anything strategic, big unlocks, big hires, anything that could be major value drivers of the company, but we leave the day-to-day management to them. And that's actually a feature, not a bug, both for us in terms of scaling Atomic and our time, and for them in terms of that being something that they want, and also for us in being able to attract that caliber of talent. And, you know, we know that we might not have gotten a company right if we're having to spend actually too much time diving in and doing a lot of different things. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but that's actually what we found that works very well from that perspective. And then happy to talk through some of the companies Yeah.
I mean, what, you know, we've seen, Homebound is in the construction industry. We've seen a massive unlock of construction, huge, as you mentioned, the demographic changes and patterns of people moving out of the cities. So that must be seeing huge tailwinds for you. Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, hims and hers, for online pharmacy, that's another, certain trends are going your way. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
And replicant in the, call center, automating the call center in the cloud. So.
Yeah, we have a number of companies, many of which are actually benefiting from COVID. And in many ways, COVID is accelerating the future pretty quickly and dramatically. So the degree to which you're right about the future, you can get pretty dramatic acceleration of an idea and its adoption into market. You know, with hims and hers, it was pretty obvious to us that this whole concept of how the healthcare system works and, you know, calling a number and being put on hold and scheduling an appointment and sitting in a waiting room, you know, going a week later, an hour-long appointment, going to Walgreens and waiting for, you know, a half an hour in line. This is just not an experience that was adopted for the future or for millennials. There's an audience that got trained to push a button and a car shows up, or like I invented Postmates, push a button and, you know, your food shows up at your door. And we were super shocked when we did the research. 9 out of 10 millennials don't even know who their doctor is. And, you know, the 1.0 attempt of telemedicine was really around replacing your primary care doctor, this idea of doctor in the cloud, you know, and that is done very well. There are public companies that are doing extraordinarily well that serve that purpose. But what we realized is that if you focus on an individual pain point, we were the first people to do this, an individual pain point, and you really nail that, and you use the doctor visit as a vehicle to diagnose that, and you monetize handling whatever that kind of chronic condition is, that is a, you know, much more interesting way to really help solve healthcare in the United States, because there are a lot of people that are suffering from a lot of acute conditions that need help, but they're just not willing to go through that huge process that I described earlier. So there's been massive acceleration there. Replicant is one that you mentioned. Replicant is really interesting. You know, across the world, over $1 trillion a year is spent on call centers, and we've all had these terrible experiences of calling into call centers. And you're on the phone with United Airlines, and you're 48 minutes into the call, and it's still not solved. And it seems like a really simple request. And you got put on hold, you know, 5 times and transferred to different agents. And it's a pretty simple request. And, you know, I just had this realization that a lot of these requests that go into call centers can be automated using AI. You know, you could have, we had built another company that got acquired called Talk IQ that did real-time transcription on phone calls. So we realized we could build a system that listens in real time, does natural language processing. So you don't have prompts, you know, press 1 for this, 2 for that, et cetera, going through all these phone trees. You just speak to it like a human. It speaks back instantly like a human in a human tone of voice. And, you know, it's not going to be able to solve everything out of the gate. But the reality is most of these calls are change your password, update your billing, you know, very simple kinds of things. And you can start with those and they can get more complex over time. So we created this technology at Replicant, and it is, you know, knock your socks off good, working with some huge companies with, you know, many, many more massive contracts along the way. That's really exciting. And part of what's necessitated that is COVID. At COVID, no one works in a call center that's very dense anymore. People are working from home. Because physical businesses are shut down, you can't go to the physical location and get your questions answered. So call volume has spiked dramatically. Some of these call centers need to scale 5x and they can't find the people to scale them. So wait times go up, CSATs, customer satisfaction goes down, people get mad at companies, nobody wins. And this is a clear solution for them to elastically scale their call center. It works 24/7. You can call it at 3 a.m. in the morning and get your issue resolved. It answers instantly. And it actually shortens call times often by 50% and improves CSATs in the process. So super, super interesting, disruptive company with a lot of use cases. And we have a very long list of other companies like that, many of which we keep in stealth because a lot of people try to copy our companies at this point. So can't discuss those now, but in the future, happy to bring them up.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for I think we're out of time, but yeah, it's been such a great time talking to you, Jack. You're always full of amazing ideas and amazing accomplishments. And it's really kind of ironic how young you are and you're just getting started. So we'll see in 20 years this will be like the Jeff Bezos empire or Elon Musk empire, right? So
thanks. That's the goal. The goal is for Atomic to spawn hundreds and hundreds of meaningful companies and get the most talented people working on the best ideas, and we're on our way. So I appreciate the time, and hopefully this was interesting for everyone.
Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Jack, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for enlightening us with such inspirational serial entrepreneurship. Thank you both for joining us virtually.
Thanks.